Alright guys, welcome back to Gryphon Studio. Okay, so this week we're making some piles of stuff, piles of dungeon stuff. Now, this is all because I got sent a few of these treasure piles by a company called Angry Stag Wargaming. They are based here in the northeast of England, and my cousin is who runs the whole thing. So he sent me a few of these over, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, I'll use them. And I mean, they are really detailed. But he also sent over a whole bunch of miscasts. Now there's loads. There's loads. There's like a whole bunch of things, like bookcases, barrels. I don't even know how these are miscasts because they look really good. They look good to me. I don't know. Some sacks and crates and more crates, but there is a lot of kind of like knackered stuff, you know, like things that's clearly a miscast that the resin hasn't filled out properly. And there's books, shelves and more shelves, and cupboards and things. The detail's really good, really fine. So I thought maybe I can make some like piles of general debris out of some of the miscast stuff. So that's the theme of this week's video. Piles of stuff. Alright, so I started with a 3" by 3" square of graphics medium weight chipboard, and I decided to cut the edges off a little bit to make it more pleasing shape. The idea of going with a 3" square is just so that I know that it would sit inside a 3" tile grid quite easily and wouldn't take up too much room. Alright, so I'm going to use a bit of filler. This is just cheap stuff from a cheap DIY store, already mixed. Just going to use my finger and smear it on big chunks, and then use a bit of water. That I had paint water nearby, so I'm using that. And this just helps the plaster adhere to the dry and porous surface of the cardboard. And while that plaster is still wet, I'm going to go through these pieces that I've got left over here and just pick out a few bits enough to fill this base. And then because it's still wet, you can just kind of smush them in. Some of these half barrels and half chests are really useful for just kind of making it look as though they're buried in this pile of rubble, all kind of swept into the middle of the floor maybe. A bit of a door there. I'm actually going to glue the pieces of resin together where they make contact with each other, so where the door hits the barrel and where the bookshelf hits the door and things. So they're going to get a little bit of super glue on just to help secure them in place. And working fairly quickly, I still want the filler to be wet while I'm adding these little bits of plaster. These are just from leftover projects where I've gathered up all these angular, jagged pieces of plaster that have snapped off various things and swept them into a little tub. Okay, now we've got to wait until the fillet is completely dry for this bit, and then we're just going to add some PVA glue to the rest of it, really, around all the rocks and around all the larger chunks of furniture and things that we've added there, and just really get between all those bits so that we can fill those in with some sand. Again, this is just a mixture of different grain sizes of sand, some ballast and some grit, and a little bit of beach sand and things. And after that PVA and sand layer was dry, I just base coated the whole thing in a brown spray primer. And then I took a dark grey and I went around all of the kind of stony surfaces, which would just be the big bits of rock and ballast, rubble and stuff around the edges, trying to make sure to miss the furniture and things in the middle. And then I did a quick dry brush of a lighter grey over pretty much the entire thing. Even though there's a lot of different textures and different things on this base, it's really quite useful that we're doing it in a kind of a dungeon theme, because dungeon themes tend to have one thing in common, and that's that they're grimy and dusty and dirty and kind of knackered. So it's really handy to have it in this theme, because we can be quite forgiving with a paint job. I'm just going to attack this here with a little bit of Xandri dust, just on some of the woodwork, not even all of the woodwork, just want to give a few bits of this furniture here a little bit of a different tone. And then I picked out any detail work, so the iron banding around the barrel and the copper banding around the chests and things. And then once dry, I added my usual black-brown wash over the entire thing, and this would help tie the whole piece together and really pick out all that detail. The detail in these pieces are really good actually, some really nice deep wood grain. It really gets picked out well with washes. You can see that's dry now, and I'm just going to go around some of the stonework that was a little bit too dark and dingy, trying to increase the contrast a little bit here with a little bit of a medium grey or a light grey just around some of the stonework. But you know what, maybe you don't have all these extra little bits of furniture that I have lying around, so you can use all kinds of other things. So I'll move on to a few other extra ideas I had. Okay, so what if you don't want to put something in the middle of a room? What if you want the pile of something to be in the corner? Well, it's easy enough done. You just cut out a corner piece and then we'll try and build that up with some bits of cardboard. And this is, instead of using loads of filler, you can just use some hot glue to stick down chunks of corrugated card. And this will help really build up the height and should hopefully help strengthen the piece as well. Now we do want to add a little bit of filler to this just to smooth out that transition between the layers of cardboard there, and also to kind of fill in that back edge where you can see the corrugated card has really left an unsightly mess. So if you just smear it into the gaps and the holes around the back, that should help smooth it out, and you know, you can always kind of sand it down later if you get any rough bits. Okay, so now that you've got your basic corner piece triangle shape, you can just start adding stuff to it, and I would recommend just something like general debris, bits of wood, planks using coffee stirrers, some cloth, you can use paper for this or actual cloth, some string to act as rope and stuff, just general debris that might be thrown away in the dungeon or piled up in the corner. Put some rubble in there as well and some sand. For this I'm just adding a really basic paint job, mostly browns and mostly greys, and then just lots of dry brushing and lots of highlighting, and then I added a wash at the end again just to tie the whole thing together. Or how about a good old pile of corpses? I mean, why not? You know, this is a dungeon, so yeah, that's fine. You know, throw some bones on there and some zombie bits and some limbs and things, and just give a nice covering of grey and paint out the fleshy bits with a nice pale flesh, and then hit it with a wash and a highlight, and you should be fine. But maybe you haven't got the parts to make a pile of dead. Maybe you just want to make some piles of rubble. Well, this is fine too. Just build up the base in the same way. I had lots of chunks of plaster that I had left over, and then some sand to fill in those cracks. Start with the biggest bits first and then move on to the finer pieces. And then you can just hit that with an overall light grey covering after the undercoat of black primer. And then fill in the gaps in between with a kind of a muddy brown, like some of the earth has kind of caved in. If it wasn't immediately obvious, this piece is 3 inches wide and it's designed to go in a 3-inch dungeon tile where I could block off a passageway or hallway and force players to go another route. And then really give it a good highlight and a good dry brushing, and you can add the wash afterwards. There we go, guys, all done. Okay, so this was a really interesting and kind of simple, easy build, especially considering how well they came out in the end. It's not often that you get something that is this easy to make, but with a result like this. So I'm really happy with the way they turned out. Honestly, like, just get your bits boxed together and all the kind of coffee stirrers you've got and bits of rocks and rubble and sand and grit and string, and you can just kind of throw them into anything and into a big pile of something and glue them all down, and honestly you've got some really good effective piles of something for your dungeons. I mean, they make really useful scenic enhancements, if you like, for encounters. I mean, your players could investigate them and basically things could be hiding in them, or you could find stuff in there, like, you know, there's, or you can just make something look better, just make a room look better. And that's always good for, you know, immersing your players and things. So yeah, also it was made a lot easier by Angry Stag Wargaming, sending me a whole bunch of different things. And I mean, the sculpts are excellent. They're made of a kind of a resin or something, and yeah, they're very durable, really fine detail. And I mean, some of these little bits are excellent. I can't see anything wrong with this. How is this a miscast? I don't mind, I'm bothered. Also, I am on Instagram and Facebook as well, so feel free to check me out on there, and I do have some Amazon affiliate links in the description below if you are in the UK. Also, if you feel that you got something out of this video or you liked it, then please feel free to like, comment and subscribe below. It all helps to support the channel, and I'll try and get back to everybody as much as I can. That's all for this one though. I'll see you again next time, and happy crafting.